Hello again, everyone. This is Abra, and I'm back to give my 2 cents on the 1999 film Ravenous. So with Halloween right around the corner, I decided to go ahead and try to find a spooky movie to watch. I was looking for something a little less traditional and a little more obscure. I happen to recall watching this movie way back when on Netflix, when they were still just a DVD through the mail rental company. Now, this movie doesn't have the best reviews, and it's a very odd film. The tone is kind of strange. On IMDb, it's sitting at a 6.9 out of 10, and Rotten Tomatoes has it at a 52%. But I remember this movie being kind of intriguing because it has a unique premise. And one of the things that I really liked about this horror movie was the setting. It takes place out west in the Sierra Nevada mountains. The time period is just after the Spanish-American War, and the main character, Captain John Boyd, played by Guy Pearce, he was a veteran of that war. He is getting essentially banished out west due to his actions while serving in the war. During one of the battles, he was overcome by fear and froze, while his fellow soldiers were just being massacred all around him. And unfortunately, he succumbs to his fear and ends up playing dead in order to escape being killed during the conflict. And in a strange twist, he ends up being carried back over enemy lines as they're trying to dispose of the dead bodies. He does find a bit of courage and ends up capturing the Mexican commander. Unfortunately, Boyd's superiors are in a pickle. They can't really reprimand Captain Boyd because he did accomplish a feat by capturing such a big enemy, but everyone around him knows that he's a coward. So they end up promoting him and then swiftly relocating him / banishing him to a very undesirable and secluded outpost out west. So Pierce's character, Captain John Boyd, carries that heavy weight of being a coward, and he's trying to figure out how to adapt to his new life out in the barren wilderness. The outpost he's assigned to is Fort Spencer. The fort is overseen by Colonel Hart, played by the now infamous Jeffrey Jones. He comes across as a very intellectual person and kind of views his time there at Fort Spencer as a sort of a purgatory, overseeing the other misfits, some of which include a wannabe religious figure played by Jeremy Davies, and a young David Arquette playing Private Cleaves, who's buddies with one of the Native American liaisons helping out at the fort. The other officers consist of a quasi-medical officer played by Steven Spinella, and then you have the really crazy and gung-ho Private Reich, who's played by Neil McDonough, who was really fitting in that crazy officer kind of role. I think what really captivated me with this movie was just the all-around setting. You don't get too many horror movies that are westerns. The isolated environment that Guy Pearce's Captain Boyd found himself in just created a really intriguing setting for me. The quiet, mundane daily lives of the officers serving at Fort Spencer are upended one evening when they come across a man who stumbles into the fort on the verge of death from hypothermia, played by Robert Carlyle. Carlyle's character Ives recounts to the soldiers a horrific tale of survival after the party he was traveling with was stranded in a cave while trying to navigate the treacherous land out west. He horrifies the men with his tales of cannibalism and how he barely survived the ordeal. The soldiers gather together to go investigate, and thus begins the supernatural tale of cannibalism in this eerie atmospheric environment. Despite its mixed reviews, I really did like this movie. There are just a few things that keep this movie from being a lot better. I think one of the things that might have hindered this film is the soundtrack. It's got to be one of the most wacky soundtracks I've ever heard. There are several times where an intense scene is taking place, and then you have that quirky music just drumming along in the background. I think another thing that kind of held this movie back was not really exploring more of the major premise of this movie, which was the cannibalism. This film explored a supernatural element to that taboo act, and it would have been interesting to see a little bit more of that supernatural kind of side that they were touching on. The Native Americans described the act of the cannibalism and the people that took part in it as Wendigos. And I think it would have been interesting to maybe explore the origin of that, maybe touch on a little bit more of the Native American aspect of it. The elements of the film that did really shine for me was the atmosphere and the way that the film was shot. It just really helped drive home the feeling of isolation and foreboding. And the best thing about the film for me was the dynamic that Guy Pearce's John Boyd and Robert Carlyle's Ives had together. They had a really good antagonistic relationship.
What about you, Captain Boyd? You don't eat meat?
Only as a last resort.
It's a pity.
I think that came across really well in the film. Their relationship had almost an interview with a vampire vibe to it. So all in all, despite its flaws, I still think Ravenous is worth a watch. Again, just for its unique take on the subject matter and the really creepy atmosphere. And it's a horror Western movie. So yeah, check it out. I definitely say it's worth giving a shot. So those are my 2 cents on the 1999 movie Ravenous. Once again, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, take care.
Eat to live. Don't live to eat. Huh?